What is going on, man?
How are you?
I'm living,
Hey,
doing a hell of a lot better than I was a couple weeks ago.
natural immunity.
What's that?
Natural immunity.
Hell yeah, man. I'll take it. It was like nothing I've ever experienced, man, ever. And I don't get sick often anyways, but I've had the flu a couple times pretty bad. And that's what it felt like, except that it lasted for, 4 times as long.
Yeah, it's not like the 2-day things. It's like 2 weeks, and and it's probably bad for like the first. At least when I had it, it was like maybe bad for the first like 3 days of it, 4 days, and then you just feel like shit. You can't really do anything. Your energy's low, but it's not like you're gonna die.
Yeah, see, mine was different. Like I was working late on a Wednesday. My last meeting ended at like 9 o'clock, and I went back next door and walking. I'm like, I'm fucking freezing, and so I figured, all right, I'm getting a cold, whatever. Went to bed, and from that point on, it was like, boom, 8 days straight. You're feeling like you're dying. Can't get out of bed. 100 like I was hitting 104 degrees at night. It was a little scary at times, but luckily, our doctor is like kicks ass, and he's big on texting and email. And so he was in constant contact with us. I didn't take the stupid test until Saturday or Sunday. I don't remember what we did, an at-home test, which I'm pretty confident you could just put under tap water and it says positive anyways. But he prescribed some shit. We got it Monday, and his biggest thing is just like, listen, man, he's like, tell your wife that unless you start acting really confused or you're like gasping for breath, you are not going to any hospital. Stay the fuck out of the hospitals. Stay away from them. Like, okay, here we go. But, I'm back to like 95%. Come 2 o'clock, I get kind of tired and lazy, but I think that's half of the US population anyways.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's like the old adage of well, hold up. Before I tell that story, it's one, like that's how doctors used to be, man. Like make house calls, like
Oh yeah.
shit, really care. So that's sweet, first off. Like real solid. Um, and then so this is like the life of every probably like maintenance guy was just like in the culture anyway that I heard the context I heard the story in. But is Mondays are for showing up, just getting over the weekend. Tuesdays are for getting your area ready. Wednesdays are for work. Thursdays for cleanup, and Friday is getting ready for the weekend.
Yeah, sounds about right. So how you been, man? You've been busier than shit, it sounds like.
Yeah. In like good ways though, man. Like it's stuff that like it's all needle moving stuff, right? I'm not dicking around with like day-to-day stuff by and large now. And frankly, I almost get pissed when I get like work handed to me from consulting stuff. Like it's nice, but it's just like, okay, I'm working for, I'm doing stuff like $100 an hour. So it's like, okay, like I'll work 3-4 hours today, make a few $100, or a couple grand over a month or whatever, which is cool. But at the same time, I'm like, this does not move the needle
Yeah.
whatsoever. Oh, this would help a lot. The mic was plugged in, it just wasn't selected, so it was on my PC, and my fan is loud as shit. So
Gotcha.
good call. Clearly I haven't opened Zoom in a while. So yeah, man, like I'm doing so much needle moving stuff now where like so I started phase 1 last week in November, whatever that was, the 29th. So I'm on whatever day, 14, 13, I don't know, whatever.
It is.
Nice.
And like my power list is like blog post, LinkedIn post, lift with my band system, gratitude, video to Instagram, which goes to Facebook, marketing activity for really for anybody, but Cowabunga primarily, 30 minutes of stretching, breath work, and then all the 75 hard stuff plus cold shower visualization. Like that is my list. And then on top of that, so, and this like, so Saunders had a voice like note memo from Andy, like clarifying the power list. And he's like, so anything that you want to make a habit, you put on your power list, right? Anything that's like a to-do list thing, like, you know, call Bob to order anchor bolts, right?
Yeah.
Like that is a to-do list item. So that goes on the right. And if you don't complete that, then it's like, it's not the end of the world. It's not, you know, a power list thing. So it's like marketing activity, right? Something you could do Monday through Sunday and completely make a habit that needs to go on the power list. So, you know, maybe it's a call, maybe it's a contact for business stuff, but it could be like writing emails, you know, posting, like something that is, you know, moving that needle forward, but can also then becomes a habit is the whole point of the power list. And I was like putting a lot of to-do shit on my power list, which is what frankly made phase one like always a bitch, because I put like stupidly hard, you know, to-do tasks on the power list side of it versus like habit creating things. So this time around has been like, even though I have more shit on the list for like phase one and like in terms of habits and more than I've ever done, I feel better about it because it's all habit forming stuff than like to do things. And I still get a bunch of shit on the to-do list done. I'm just like, I'm not now worried about it.
And that makes total sense, man. Because I've done the same thing when I've done it before, and you'll see it when you're done. Like when those things become habits and you're like, well, holy shit, it all worked. Then that's when you'll really, really look back and recognize it. Like this is powerful, man.
Yeah. And so like in that regard, like for marketing activities, so at the, I don't know, in the last few weeks, I stood up really from the last time I was with Chris. So we created a like definitive guide for trucking, right? That, so that's like basically outlining all the philosophy, like everything that he does, you know, why it's important, all that stuff. And then wrote all the email sequence. We have a cold email campaign that's like, dude, I'm learning so much about freaking sending cold spam emails and how to do that without getting caught. It's effectively what it is. Because like we're sending a list to 7,000 people. So we
Wow.
I just sent 6,500. Oh shit, finally went out. Sweet. That's real cool. So this finally went out. Oh, sweet. Did this finally go? Damn. Okay, cool. So that finally went out. 6,500 emails that got delivered like yesterday, today. It took like a week for that thing to fucking get sent. But anyway, so that went out, which real cool, which we have the whole sequence built behind it. So that we have a 3-part or a 3 email like sequence for that, for them to go download the guide. Then whoever downloads the guide, we have a 5-part with video follow-up sequence for them to then lead them into booking a call. And then once they book a call, there's a few little things that will like automate in there. And then once they're now a customer and shit's shipped, we have a follow-up sequence for, I wrote for basically 5 emails through like week 1, week 3, 6, 9, 12. So through 3 months to like just check in with them via an email sequence that's like preloaded. And then so that's really like one big campaign. There's parts and pieces that we can use for others. Chris just stood up a campaign for, or really a website. And it's like a choose your own adventure guide. So this is like real cool for, so it's for Anheuser-Busch, for their partner with T-Mobile, for their growers and wholesalers. So they're, you know, every beer distributor, basically, independently owned beer distributor for Anheuser, where like on the landing page, like, hey, if you're a grower, go here. If you're a, you know, retailer, go here. And then like split decision trees on each page. Like, hey, are you an existing T-Mobile customer? No, go here. Yes, go here. And then videos on every single page. So there's like, I think homepage, grower, seller. There's like 8 pages within there, video content for all of them, forms for all of them, for them to like book a call and, you know, get through all the stuff that we've like pre-vetted, you know, a bunch of things for them with all the content, everything else. So that's getting stood up, or that's, you know, up now. So that's 2. I'll have one for Cowabunga by the end of probably maybe next week, if not the week after, to like stand up all my shit. And I'm trying to go through like 3 pillars are like a nice piece. And I think the 3 pillars that really like matters. So for like Chris's stuff, right, it's the right gear, set up the right way, managed correctly. And that covers like all the stuff. Well, I was trying to think of like, what the hell does engineering firms, like, what are the 3 pillars that like really engineer construction like companies deal with? And the 3 that I like thought of is, or, and help me if I'm wrong here, but it's really people, right? Like how to attract, retain people. It's like problem number 1. Number 2 is projects, right? Like get your shit done on time, under budget, and get more of them. And then profit, right? Like how do you be profitable in doing this? And those are, I think, the 3 like biggest pillars across. And really you can apply that to anything, but MEP firms in particular, right? Like they can't attract anybody. They're always up against deadline, and then they're not profitable, or barely.
100%, man. I think that goes across the entire industry. I mean, people is, we've talked about that a ton. People are the hardest commodity to find right now. And once you get them, you got to keep them. You know, up against scheduling, it's getting stupid, because we went through all the bullshit of last year and frankly this year too, and all the delays. Well, people are starting to get really nervous that the money's going to dry up. And so there's this huge push, and at least in my world, like we have to fast track everything, because we lost, you know, 18 months of progress because of everything that happened. And so it is, schedules are getting cut like after the fact. People are pushing like I've never seen before. And then to try and do that and maintain these commitments and keep everybody happy while still keeping your bottom line and making that profit margin. I mean, it's we're doing it, you know, but there's definitely been some pretty heated, very heated conversations that we've had lately with clients. And that's not the funnest thing to do, but it's nutty right now, man. So
Yeah.
I think you've got it. I think those are easily the 3 biggest pillars.
And really, I mean, so I had, this was like kind of cool. So I had the opportunity through like, because I'm a member of Magnetic Marketing, or the No BS in Our Circle thing, through Dan Kennedy, which is like fucking dirt cheap. It's $97 a month. And like, it gave me the whole idea for my newsletter. Plus just all the other stuff that they give. But in there, because Brunson bought it, like, you know, recently, he did an open Q&A with the Magnetic Marketing community. And I had a chance to like actually ask a question directly to Brunson, like via,
Nice.
like I actually, you know, talked to him, like it was just my voice, but via Zoom or whatever. And so that was cool. That was worth like a year of magnetic marketing. And then all the other stuff that they're doing, like I'm never leaving. um, which is like, that says a lot, right? Just in like those few bonuses and like all the other shit that they're going to send here in, in the mail and more newsletters and all this stuff, right? It's totally worth the $97 a month I pay. But in that, like, so my question was like on perfect webinar, because that's the thing that Brunson like pushes real hard is perfect webinar, perfect presentation. And he was like, well, that's really built for like one-to-many selling, not necessarily like one-to-one sales, and like knocking over like what he calls like the big domino, right? The big thing that everybody's up against or that they have a problem with or whatever. And he's like, one, like you should probably do like the video boxes, which like I've talked about a bunch, right? Like those things that have you open them up and it's got a custom video in it or whatever, to send directly to people. I was like, okay, cool. But the other one was like making presentations specifically for each buyer persona within the company. So I think the thing that I'm standing up or looking to is one, and so this is like the other question that I have is there's the C-suite, right? That I want to say for design firms and for like MEP in particular, these guys primarily care about projects more than anything else, right? Because as much as they say that they care about profit, they really don't, because their profit margins suck. So by their actions, like profit is not important to these people. Like money is not important to these people, which is crazy, but that's take what they do, not what they say.
Sure.
And so C-suite, I think they care more about the projects that they do and the ego behind it than the money made from a project.
See, it's totally different on the design side in that sense than the construction side, but it's really similar at the same time, right? Because there's a lot of construction firms that they care about the profit, they care about the money, but they're just too stupid to make any. And so to make up for their lack of ability to run a business, they try and build it strictly based on volume of projects. And these are the guys that will build every doghouse, jump on every public bid that's out there. Actually, I got suckered in today to a webinar, a mandatory webinar. Do you know who Plant Moran Cressa is?
Yeah.
They're kind of a big conglomerate of
Big
hideous overspending and owner representation. Well, there's a local community around here. They put out an RFQ back in August that piqued my interest. They were looking for a CM, construction manager, to run their capital improvement project for like 2 or 3 years. So I'm like, I'll bite. So I submitted something. Well, we made the cut, which was kind of shocking, to be quite honest. So we got the RFP on Monday. Well, they advertised it as $8.5 million over 2 years, cut up in between like 4 or 5 projects. I'm like, well, hell, that actually sounds pretty good. And I'm looking, and they've already done their estimates. So, take that for what it is. And I'm looking through them. I'm like, okay, like these projects sound kind of good. So I sit down for this webinar, this mandatory thing this afternoon. First of all, it's $8.5 million in construction costs. It's $10.75 million as an overall budget for the project. So that tells you how much them and the designers are scraping off of the taxpayer. The $8.5 million is legitimate, stretched over 2 years. What they didn't say in anything up until today was it stretched over 30 different buildings. So those 5 projects that they broke it down on the advertisement are like, change out the millwork in 15 different buildings. It just this ridiculous list. And, we made the cut. I was one of 7 GCs on the call, and I'm looking around or, looking through the camera, and nobody looks pissed off except for me. I couldn't believe it. So I laughed. I'm like, you, good luck, guys. I can't even listen to the rest of your speech. It was infuriating to me. But you see these firms that do that, and I totally get what you're saying with the design side, but construction guys will just eat this shit up. And it's just, let's get as much as we possibly can, and we'll deal with the numbers sometime down the road.
Yeah, it's a total ego play, right? It's total ego, and they're touting their top line, even though their bottom line is fucking bleeding.
Garbage.
They're dragged behind the horse that they rode in on. I mean, it's bad. And that's just like across the board, but it's all an ego. Like, I built that. I did this. Like, this is what it comes down, like that's just what I like. When you really start to think about it, it's all ego driven, because they're just chasing that next project versus trying to make the thing that they have profitable, which is like every shiny object syndrome you've ever seen. Right.
Totally. And I would rather do 4 projects a year and make my margins than do 40, but I never understood the opposite mentality where, they just want to keep stacking them. And it's one thing if you're for the bigger firms, if it's a really high end, arena or something, you can gain some intrinsic value out of, or future marketing, the big, we did that. But when it's the doghouse, like, what the hell? I mean, and I guess somebody's got to do it. So that's good. They can, go chase that stuff and leave what I want to me, but I just don't get it, man.
Well, it's because you're not an idiot, I mean, that's what it comes down to. Like, I've talked to Dan about this, Dan Weiss, and like, so with offsite, their margins are double what a drywall contractor is, right? And doing all the framing and offsite stuff and steel, right? Their margins are double net. And he's like, I could do 4 hotels a year and make way more money with like one client.
Why would you want to go anywhere else?
And he's like, I could do, and it's like, because he's just looking at it like, I could do, and because of his standing, right? He's been in the industry, knows everybody for 20 years. And he's like, I could go do like a couple hotels, or I do like one warehouse, like framing, or those like H trusses, and do those. And like, he's like, I could do 20 million, make 5, and have like 3 projects a year.
And what I've found is, it doesn't matter if it's $1 million project or a $20 million project. It takes the same amount of work on the pre-con side, on the management side, even on the design side, all of it. Like,
oh yeah, there's that base, like, this sucks, like, thing to get through, like contracts, setup, accounting pieces, like all the like suck factor. And it doesn't matter whether that's a $5,000 bathroom renovation or $100 million or $1 billion stadium. The shit is the same.
You and I are both on the same page. That's why I'm a shitty project manager, by the way. I can't do it because that stuff, like, I'd rather just skip it and just shake a hand and be like, let's go, let's do it. Let's build it now. And obviously you can't do that, but that's why I hired a good project manager.
I mean, some people are built for that stuff, man. Like,
For sure.
Love it. Yeah. So like, I come down to the 2 things, like, in construction, and it sucks, but this is the reality of it. They care about projects, and they, to an extent, care about people. Right. And then profits, like, I hope there's some around here somewhere, like, that's the mentality of it. And like, so I do all these things. Like, I did this whole like MEP money math that, nobody told you, and you can't unsee it. And secrets that they don't want you to know about, like, nobody fucking showed up for that. So I'm just like, okay, you people clearly give 2 shits about making money. Like, you do not care. So, all right, how the hell, because saving time, that doesn't matter to you either. All right, so what do we talk about? And it's like, okay, you can do more projects, you can get more clients, and your people aren't going to leave you because their life doesn't suck, which that is like still way down the list because you also clearly don't give a shit about your people either. So let's just play into your ego. This whole thing is really what I'm like coming to learn, or I kind of knew it, but like through real data now and like what people respond to, like they say, yeah, like communicate more, but fuck it, I'm not doing that. Am I wrong? Like,
No, you're spot on, man. Um, and I think a lot of it too, you know, it's ego driven. But what's scary is that I don't think a lot of them know that they're not making any money. Right. I think a lot of those firms, design firms, construction firms alike, they don't know until it's too fucking late. Right. They think they're just stacking all these projects on and you know, living the high life. And then all of a sudden that day comes when the reaper wants to collect, and they look at their books, or more likely a qualified person looks at their books and goes, yo, you don't have shit. What have you been doing for the last 10 years? And they're like, well, we've been busy. We're busy as hell. We're building all these dog houses and we're doing all this stuff. Where's the money? And it hits them like a brick in the face.
yeah, I mean, it's on the design side, like it's because the top people in all those firms are good. Well, okay. So the top people in all those firms are in the big boys. They are primarily okay engineers. They're good. I won't say they're great by any means. They're okay. They're good. They didn't fuck anything up real bad. And more often than not, they're really good at talking to people, and they stumbled their way into networking somehow and got put in the right place behind the right guy, went to the right meetings and met the right people. And then they just kind of went from there, applied to RFPs and queues, and, you know, threw a bunch of shit at the wall, and some of it stuck. It's basically how these people succeeded in their careers. They didn't read, they didn't do shit. They just kind of showed up and weren't the worst. It's like sad to say, but like you go and look at every one of them. Like they were mediocre architects. They were good enough. They knew enough. And then they were really good at talking to people. That is what won. And they were basically glorified salesmen with a license. And not that they know that though. They think they're the king shit of, you know, engineering or architecture or whatever. And so they get to the top by the projects that they use. So all they end up looking at, and all they see is their top line contract value. So when you have contracts coming across your desk that are 3, 4, 500K, $1 million contract, a $4 million contract for design fees for whatever, you think you're like the shit. But then like, you know, you start looking around for some profit, and, you know, it's where to go. You just collected a paycheck, you know, every month, and that was what it amounted to. Yeah, you might be making 200 grand, but, you know, whoop-de-doo, like
There's nothing left in the pot then to actually grow the company and to turn it into something great.
Or to sell it. Like most of these were, so one of the guys, marketing guys, eventually he'll never leave, but that I worked with, awesome dude, like freaking workaholic, great writer, good marketer. Not he could be great if like somebody pointed him in the right direction. Like he could write, he could do all the stuff, knew the industry in and out better than anybody. And his dad was one of the like partners at the firm and retired about the time that I came on. And he's like, yeah, my dad put like 0 in the sale of his stock of the company when he retired as a partner. Like that was his budgeting, was goose egg from, and he was a partner for 20 years, like, you know, basically been in this firm his whole life, you know, was 40 years of service to like, you know, for he budgeted in his sale of stock was goose egg. Like nothing. He anticipated nothing from the sale of his stock in the company.
That's sad, man. You know, to put that much of your blood, sweat, and tears into something and not expect to get something really nice out of it. Like, why do you do it? You can go make 200 grand in a lot of different ways. You know, you can make a good salary doing quite a lot of things that are probably way less stressful.
Oh yeah. Less stressful, less hard, less shit, you know, a lot of things. But anyway, so I mean, basically I'm gonna stand up this for, and I think I'm just gonna go with like one buyer persona because it's really projects and people. Those are the two things. I think even the C-suite and like the staff, they kind of care about the same things somewhat in different ways. Like it's all ego, man. It's all like we want to do better projects. We're the best in the world about it. Like nobody gives a shit about creating more value. Like they don't care. And it's like I gotta like unlearn a lot of this, or not unlearn, but I gotta, if I was a real dumbass and running my engineering firm, how would I do it? Well, okay, this is, and that's basically how the market does it. So that's to stand up this whole process with, okay, this is how you do more projects without hiring anybody.
You know, you mentioned unlearning it. That's really what it is, right? Because you know how to run a business. You know how you would run a business like that, but you can't keep that mentality when you're strictly just trying to sell to them, right? Because you get this fog, this save the world type fog, right? Like, I want to help because I know how to do this, and I'm trying to show you how to run a business like I would do it, which would be really freaking successful. When they're on the other side of the table thinking, I'm stacking up project after project. We're building doghouses all over town. And it's just, you got to pull that out. We're a licensed registered dealer for a pre-engineered building manufacturer. We did that. I did that when I first came on board because we get pretty substantial discounts and we can use those aggressively on projects. Well, now that supply chain is a whirling pot of shit right now, none of the pre-engineered guys will sell a building, say, to you. If you're not a dealer, forget it. So what it's done is we've started getting people calling us, wanting us to just broker a building package. And usually I'm like, it's not worth the headache. I don't want to do that. Well, it was right before I got sick, and we were approached by a local guy. He wanted us to broker this building. And I was like, all right, I'll bite. Let's see what we can do here. You know, I'm going to put some money on it, and I'm going to literally make you sign on the dotted line. And I'm just going to shove the building across the table, and it's yours. It's not my problem. Well, instantly my head, once I started putting this all together, I'm spending, 10 times the amount of time on it I should. I'm breaking everything down like I would do it for me. And I'm trying to convince this guy, here's what we need to do. We need to change this in the design and blah. And then it hit me kind of like what you just said, like, wait a minute, this guy literally doesn't give a shit about anything I'm saying. All he wants to see is the number on the bottom. And if that number works, he'll buy it. And if not, then he'll go to the next guy. And we're doing a weird back and forth still. I haven't actually sold it because I don't really need to either. So I'm kind of being an asshole, frankly, but it's a weird mentality to try and play that different role, see that different view, and pull your own knowledge out of something. And I don't want to say dumb it down, but that's kind of what it is to a degree, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it's what makes me really, really good at, I can see all this through other people's businesses, but like going back and like, cause I'm an engineer, cause I came from this world and I see how just dumb people are, like and how they should be run and like how the numbers work. Like I understand all the math behind it. Like, how do you create that such that I don't know any of that stuff to then, come back to them. And I keep coming back to the only thing that they care about is doing more projects. They don't really care about saving time. They budgets are like fucking way down the list because nobody takes that shit seriously anyway. And then so it's like, okay, you don't really care about your people by all of your actions. So like, what the hell do you care about? And I keep coming back to like ego. It's like selling to doctors. And how do I, just stroke that?
I think you've hit it spot on. It's just a matter of, reformulating your attack, and, you gotta keep your head out of it sometimes.
Yeah. So I ran all these numbers, right? And then I did a presentation on it yesterday. But it was, so if you just double the number of your projects, right, you'll double your profit. You'll double bottom line profit. So on like average profit for a design firm is 3.5%, right? That is average net profit. So on going from 5 million to 10 million, right? You at 10 million, you make 350 grand profit net, which is like, fuck, why'd you do it? But so if you did that right and that's how all these firms operate. Like I was in a design firm and they made shit 100 grand net. And I was like, what the fuck? You look at AECOM, they make 1%, less than 1% net bottom line profit, which is just stupid. Like, and that's all of them. Jacobs, AECOM, Stantec, you can go look at all their financials. They make 1%, which is just insane on, billions of dollars in construction design fees. So, okay, like that doubles. If you double the number of work that you do, you double your net. Very simple linear thing. If you double your price, you 10x your bottom line. Like, because there's no marginal, right? Like every additional thing is a 10x. Well, if you double your productivity, it does the exact same thing as doubling your price. You just now don't have to deal with clients not wanting to, pay more for something. So if you double productivity, it's a 10x increase. If you only double the productivity, so like in an MEP firm, so you double 33% of it, I 5.55. Well, you double your projects and you double your productivity, right? For a third of it, you 5.5x your net. So going from 5 to 10 million, which is very realistic for most of these design firms. Like,
Sure.
It's not, it's like going from 15 engineers to 30. It's not like a huge increase in stuff. So at doing that and just doubling your electrical and technology productivity to where you hire no additional people, I can add from $5 to $10 million in revenue. I will add 1.6 million to your bottom line.
I'd buy it today.
And like, like what would you pay, right? Like to add 1.6 million, would you pay 160 grand? I'm like, people are doing this all the fucking time in crypto and they don't even have a guaranteed return. Like it's just, would you pay 80 grand, 5% to get a $1.6 million return? Of course you would. Well, for $295 a week, you can have all this.
Sold.
Yeah. And so it's just like, but that's like the math side of it that nobody understands, right? Like these, like, dude, you double your projects and you double your productivity. It's not 4, it's 10.
Right. I mean, maybe that's what it is, right? Maybe it's just ripping it down to the bare math and just sticking it in their face so blatantly that they can't not see it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm yeah, so here's the
And this was the thing you did on LinkedIn?
yeah, it's on link. It's like a half hour. Yeah, so here's like the math, right? like 14 point, 15x, right? When you double your price. If you double your productivity, it's the same exact math, right? For the next marginal deal.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's easier? Do you want to tell a client they're gonna pay twice as much or just be twice as good? Like, what's easier? What do you have control over? And then this is like that value equation out of Hormozi's book. This is probably in chapter like 2. Like what do you want, right? So the dream outcome is the building that they want. Perceived likelihood of achievement is basically like, can you do this? And everybody is basically the same, right? So everyone is effectively the same in looking at the value equation. Like there's no difference really in firms. So the dream outcome, like this might vary slightly, like firm A or B might be slightly better. You think you might get a marginally better building, right, out of one firm over another, outside of like the Starkitects, right, outside of like a Frank Gehry or something like that. So your dream outcome and likelihood of achievement, like, yeah, we think we're going to get a building. We think it's going to be good enough, right? And then it's like, the time delay, like for everybody, it's basically the same. Like we think that everybody's going to do it in about the same amount of time. There's no real benefit one way or the other here. And then effort sacrifice, everybody's like, okay, well, this firm is not that much of a pain in the ass, so we're going to hire them because that's what we care about. Is like who's not a dick and I can deal with and is going to give me a pretty good building, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it in the time that I want it, and that equals value. So for most all firms, like this is all basically equal. And then it's like, who do I like more, right? Effort and sacrifice. And, do they have some good shit in their portfolio? It's about the only things that clients ever decide on. But again, like, what the fuck do I know? Nobody thinks like this. Like, this is not a normal thought process for any fucking design firm or construction firm ever. So, but if you can shrink the time, then your value goes way up, as you're seeing right now with, time. Like people will pay more for time. So like when you double the productivity, right? Just electrical and technology, that's 1.6 million, it's 5.5. Like you go from basically 350 grand to 2 million in net profit, 5.5x by just doubling the projects and then like not hiring any additional electrical technology staff.
I mean, how could you say no to that? If you were in that industry, if I was in that industry, I'd feel like an idiot.
Yeah. And then so I went through all this stuff, but for only $295, here's all the shit you're going to get. I'll do weekly accountability calls. So you use the software. I'll fix all your content so you get it, and I'll do a money back guarantee. If you don't, then that's like a 40,000, like in my guarantee. And I'm like, I can't help you sell more, or I could, but you're not going to let me. So we're not going to do that. And I can't guarantee you're going to deliver anything. So my guarantee is that you'll be able to complete a 40,000 square foot office in 40 hours or your money back. And I'm like, and I'm doing this so that it's believable. Like if I said 2 hours, you'd probably shit a brick. So that's not what we're going to say here, but 40 hours or a week. And actually I said some of this, I was like, I've got to make it believable. Like, so you don't believe what I'm going to do. Like, here's a believable, like guarantee to make it realistic for you.
That's, I don't know how you say no. I mean, what does it take a normal design firm to do a 40,000 square foot building?
Even just say it's double that, right? So even
that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Even say that it's 80 hours and you're paying $100 an hour, just figure that. So that's $8,000, and I'll do it for $600. 2 weeks, right? Or just a week, whatever, right? So
I mean, I don't know how you couldn't see the value in that.
Yeah. Like, what else did I put in here? Oh yeah, like you gotta cost this. I mean, like this is, I don't know, man. Like I'm pretty proud of this stack. Like that's a whole bunch of shit for $300 a week.
For $300, I would say.
15 grand a year. Use it as much as you want.
I think you're onto something with it, man. And the fact that you're going to call them and hold them account, you know, follow up with them, make sure the shit's working and that are using it right. That's pretty unheard of.
Well, and it'll be for like whatever, like it could, you know, 10 minute, it's like a 30-minute check-in call, right? We can go over your Revit content, fucking consulting. I don't give a shit. Like you're paying for it one way or the other. I just want to make sure that you use the stuff and get results with it and not let it just sit on the shelf. That's the whole like point of it is like, think of like PlanSwift or anything that you've ever bought. Like, and this is a whole human element too from Andy's last call is like people don't use shit and they want to talk to somebody. So it's like, dude, I don't give a like we can talk about your kids for half an hour for all I care. Like, you know, frankly, like it's all about you using the stuff end of day, right? Like, and answering any questions and doing that every 2 weeks. Half hour.
I mean, yeah, and that's the biggest problem with any software. I can attest to that from personal experience, right? Is you buy the shit, you have these grandiose dreams of how it's going to be fantastic, and then you make excuses and you never use it. You know, we did that. The company where I ran the PCS department, we invested heavily in a certain software, heavily. And we trained myself and two of my people. And it got to the point where to use it effectively, I had to really devote one full-time body to it, right? It was a full-time job and it sat in the proverbial box in the basement. I mean, it was a heavy investment. And we've talked to the folks, so I'm not gonna name numbers, but you know, it was just a shame because when you watch someone who knows what the hell they're doing use it, this particular software package, it'd blow you away, right? And it was effing amazing, and that's why we bought it. And then we got home, like, you know, like the kids after Christmas ripping open the boxes, and it's like, oh shit, you got to put it together. Away it went, and it sat, and I would bet they're probably still not using it. And they're probably still paying the annual maintenance fee and they don't even know it. But if you can figure out how to change that, keep them accountable and keep, you know, bouncing the phone with them once a week or a couple times a month, that could be huge.
Yeah. Here, let me put the dogs up. For them to see.
We have our big Christmas party tonight. Let's be pretty cool. It's the first time we've ever actually extended the invite to our kind of our core team of sub partners, and that's going to be a little bit larger than usual.
That's fun though.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be fun. It's not going to be too crazy and raucous, although it has the propensity to get there.
Yeah, especially when alcohol is free.
Yes. Yes. So we'll see what happens there.
So yeah, man. I mean, that's we've got the 2 campaigns for integrated stood up. I'll stand up Cowabunga Studios. I'll stand up Yonder. Um, that's the other like. So here's my stack for Yonder of shit that you'll get. So I'll share this. Trying to make irresistible offers here. But three 90-minute one-on-one strategy planning sessions, 4 hours, like half a day. This will probably be longer, but 4 hours in our like turnkey studios. We'll edit all the shit for your website, email, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, sales pages, all the videos. We'll create a insider's guide for your particular niche category. We'll do a cold prospecting campaign, which is like all the emails, the guide, the follow-ups, videos that need to go with each of them, all that stuff. And then a personalized follow-up campaign for when people bought from you, and like just a follow-up email sequence effectively. And then will help you. This is effectively help you create a newsletter. That is the most powerful retention tool ever for $5,000.
That's awesome, man. Have you guys launched it officially yet?
No, that's what we're gonna do all the videos for this next week when I'm there.
Gotcha.
Like to actually like sit through and run through all this. But I mean, this is like I don't know, for $5,000. I mean, this I'm putting numbers to it, 5, 7, 9, 10, 11, grand, 12 grand, 13 probably for all this stuff.
Sure.
For 5 plus the thing that we're trying to do is like you would never have to touch this, which kind of sucks for us in that it's not recurring. But for the first like 100 people that we do this for, because the price will go up, but for the first 100, it's like now we've done it a bunch, shit ton of testimonials and marketing campaigns that people never have to touch to generate money forever.
Heck yeah, man. So are you flying out there real frequently still?
Yeah. So for December, I'm flying out Sunday and I'll come back Friday. I'll spend like a full week. So it's probably like a week a month is about what I'm spending there. And then I talk to Chris like just about every day for
nice
hours on stuff. Like we stood up that whole Anheuser deal. Just a whole bunch of stuff. So those are the like core 4 marketing funnels and marketing campaigns that will stand up, and then potentially a few more. So we'll
very cool, man.
We'll see
very
how
cool
here shortly.
Excuse me. Well, you got any big plans this weekend other than flying out Sunday?
Doing dinner with some friends tomorrow night. Not sure where yet, and I don't think we're doing anything today. Lauren's kind of pissed because it's supposed to snow starting Sunday, so and I won't be here.
Have you guys had much snow yet?
We got like a dusting the other day, but and like the pass is closed now, so I think they got something, a good chunk up in the mountains, but
nice.
Nothing. I mean, it's cold here. It's like 40 and 30 overnight, but no, we had a lot of frost, no snow that stuck anyway.
Yeah, we had one little snowstorm. It got a dusting, but then this week has been like schizophrenic weather. It was 17 degrees was the high on Monday and Tuesday. Like I had to buy a new damn battery for my truck because it just it couldn't take it anymore. It's 57 degrees out right now, and it's supposed to start raining at like midnight. It's going to rain until about noon tomorrow, when it's going to drop then to like 20. It's everything's back to soup for a day, and then it's going to freeze. I keep bitching about it. I guess I could just move.
Yeah. I mean, the more and more like I go through this, man, like design, construction is like, what can these firms do to create like some type of loyalty, subscription based revenue that doesn't suck, right? And I mean, maintenance agreements are one of the things, right? That's for like every sub, even for you as a contractor, like maintenance agreements are one of those deals, or membership, you call it a bunch of things, right? Like a
Sure.
Schaefer Gold Circle, which is just a maintenance program or whatever, review and property management. But like those are the types of things that would be nice base revenue that you don't have to like necessarily work for.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of passive. It's basically a extended warranty, right?
Yeah. High margin back end, right? Like basically, how do you create a back end? Because everything in construction is just a front end deal and you hope to make money on it. So how do you like retain, like what's the shit the customer needs that you can sell them and do that forever?
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, it's that's what I got.
Right on, man.
All right. You want to actually do a show?
We can, or you want to just cut up the middle section of this,
I can cut up some of that.
or I can cut it up this weekend on Anchor.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
keep all the confidential shit out of it. I don't know if I've got a voice left to do another little bit here.
All right. Well, here's one other thing that I wanted to just like rip on. So within marketing, right, and all the firms out there that do anything and everything, that they have no unique selling proposition. So within like the marketing world, this is called like USP, who is created by Dan Kennedy. And it's all about like what makes your firm different? Like what's the thing that separates you from everybody else? Because for the most part, when you look at it, like, okay, you did this school, I did that school. You did this firehouse, I did that firehouse. You did this, barn, I did that barn. Like there's nothing really different. You just did a different building. They're all functional. They're still standing and you didn't get sued over them, right? Like these are the core things. Like as funny as that is, like it's the truth, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
this didn't catch on fire, or this wasn't the, bridge that collapsed in Minnesota, right? Like that firm's shit out of luck in getting anything else. Well, so what actually makes you different? Like, what do you stand apart in doing? Is your core competency like schools? Is it healthcare? Is it whatever, right? Like industrial is what you do and you're really good at it. Like, and then you have a stance on whatever that thing is. Do you write white papers on healthcare environments and how to make a healthcare project more successful or an industrial project more successful, and using these construction methodologies to actually move the project forward quicker in an industrial environment with plants that are in operation on a big campus, for these different manufacturers? What are the things that you can do to like renovate old ass warehouses and manufacturing space that are in downtowns? And this is how you can bring in, assembly lines and all this other stuff to make those old buildings and downtowns actually viable and not just put condos in them, right? Like, what is your what makes you different, what makes you stand apart, and why should somebody do business with you. And this goes to like the whole value equation that we talked about earlier is, they have a dream outcome, right? If they think that you can do that better than anybody else, that's a high probability for them choosing you and for them having to do little to no work, right? Like never underestimate the sloth of the American people in getting off their couch and being able to do something. But this is like a human condition, right? Never underestimate the sloth of somebody to get up and do something. And it's the people that get up and do something that we look up to because they did something that we weren't willing to do. This is for like video and for construction and like a lot of stuff that we like look up to those people that get on camera, have a voice, do all this stuff. We look up to those people because they're doing things that we're unwilling to do. So if you can make it super easy for people to use your services, buy from your company, right? Like do all this stuff. And like construction is probably the worst thing to ever do business with, outside of probably a lawyer that gets paid by the page to create some of these contracts, is because our contractual process is so laborious, is so hard to get through and understand, especially for first time building owners, because they don't know what the AIA is. They don't know what an AIA contract is. They don't know what any of this verbiage is. And they're going to have to spend 10 hours with their lawyer to try to figure it out at $500 an hour for his time to get through a contract that we do every day. So from that standpoint, like making that process as easy and efficient as possible for like signatures and all the other stuff that has to happen to go into like reviewing contracts, agreeing to terms, payments, like all that stuff. Right. And those are like the three things people really care about is what's the schedule? What's it going to cost? When do I have to pay? Because at the end of the day, they just want their building and to never have to pull that contract out of the bottom shelf of their file cabinet ever again. And in there, it's, if you can do that, right? So that's on the bottom of the equation, is to make their lives better, more efficient. They don't have to do anything, right? That's the bottom of the equation, is their sacrifice and effort. And the less sacrifice and effort that they have to give, the higher the value is. Plus, if they think that you're going to deliver a better outcome than the other guy, because we all know that basically whatever firm you're going to hire, your likelihood of achievement, right, and you getting a building is very high. So for the top part of the equation, we know that that's like super high. And then for the time delay, like that's the other thing, right? If you're more efficient, if you can promise a faster timeline, especially with supply chain problems, we know that you're going to provide more. So if you can issue all this stuff into your unique selling proposition, and as a Michigan guy, you'll appreciate this story, Matt. So good old Domino's, which is from Ann Arbor, so their initial customers were, Michigan students, is, hot, fresh pizza in 30 minutes or less, right? That is their unique selling proposition. So when you look at that, hey, dream outcome, I'm hungry, drunk, and I would like food, right? So, and if I can get it in 30 minutes or less, I don't really have to sacrifice anything. It's delivered to my door. The time is pretty short. I get food in my belly and I'm going to be happy with it. High value. And that's what made Domino's. So when you really look at this, right, it's a unique selling proposition, or when it absolutely positively has to be there, it's FedEx's, unique selling proposition before overnight was a thing. So again, it's going to get there.
That is a lot to unpack, but I'm going to start with the Domino's because that's close to home here. If you actually, and this is a little off topic, but if you look into their history, they got in a whole lot of shit for that whole 30 minutes or less thing, because they had these delivery drivers who would just go off kilter and would be killing people and getting in accidents and doing literally anything they possibly could to make it there in 30 minutes. So they kind of scaled that back at one point. I don't know if they still do it, but the value proposition aspect of it is is huge. And to be able to to break down any business into that simple of an equation, I think is really powerful. I don't know that it's really easy, but when you walk through those 4 variables and how you can increase your perceived value to anyone, that's the ticket. But especially in the construction world, you gotta, I think once you get to the table, once you get to that conversation, then yeah, you better be prepared to lay out what you just talked about, that whole value equation. And in my world, that's kind of easy, right? It's actually getting to the point where you can show someone that. And you talked today, and we were texting back and forth last night about how shitty we all are in the construction world at marketing in general. And I think that's the absolute truth. We don't do it, and we don't do it well. And, we don't do it well personally. I know this, social media campaigns or social media postings tend to turn into just portfolios of the shit I built. And kind of like you said, I can build a barn and that guy builds a barn, and we're all going to post pictures of our barns. They look pretty much the same. And as long as they're not on fire or collapsing, how do you differentiate? And I think to bring that mindset into the construction world would be really, really powerful.
So the question, the thing really becomes, how do you start selling to customers before the sale ever needs to be made? So instead of waiting until an RFQ or an RFP comes out, or you're in the presentation room to be like, hey guys, this is what we can do. How do you get that message out to your prospects, your potential clients, before you ever have to sell anything, before they need anything, and to really establish dominance in a one-on-one situation? Get your customer alone and you sell in a vacuum of one, right? And a lot of that, frankly, is done through writing. It's done through books. It's done through videos. It's done through blog posts. It's done through things that you're only going to read that one thing, and not, you're not followed up immediately by the next construction firm or design firm waiting to whore themselves out, frankly, for that next project. Like, that's what it's a dog and pony show. Everybody knows it is. And if you can come into that room having already sold the client that you're the person to work with, and they just have to go through the motion of, do we have 3 people that we take, presentations from, because this is a whatever project and we have to look at 3 people. It's a formality that you just have to do and like not screw it up, so that you're able to get that project. But all your selling was done months, years before you ever walked into that room. And it's getting to that point of, this is why we do these things. This is the nuance in everything that we do. And it's not that, and it's that every one of you can tell that story, can do it in a nuanced way. You just don't. And that's the difference, right? The person that does that puts in that effort, does the thing, is going to win more projects than the guy that doesn't. And it's again, not that you guys can't, it's not that anybody can't. Anybody can do this. Like, you can do a podcast, you can do a show, you can do whatever, transcribe it, send that to a client, and do that on a regular basis, right? Like, it is not necessarily hard. It just takes a little bit of effort.
Commercial construction can't just survive by putting up billboards on the freeway, right? And most people don't recognize that to really win in this game, you have to be willing to plant seeds to grow a forest, right? And I use that analogy with my people all the time, in that, our sales cycles are stupid long. They're long enough that some people will forget about these projects, but it's planting that seed so far in advance that by the time it sprouts and is a viable sapling, or, you know, whatever the next stage is, that like you said, that, you know, they're not, the client, the prospect isn't thinking about anyone else. And once you get to that point, and then you start having business come to you because the trees are growing, then it's just a maintenance thing, right? You have to water them. You have to take care of your forest. You can't let it burn down. You can't let it get logged out. You can't let, you know, oak wilt come in. And it's all based on, excuse me, on production, on doing what you say you're going to do, you know, on being honest. But to get those seeds in the beginning, that's a really hard thing to do. You know, you got to know where to find them, and you got to know how to do it. And you got to recognize that this shit doesn't happen overnight. You know, it could be 10 years. And I think that scares a lot of people away from the industry, at least from starting new in the industry. It's very difficult to just walk in to a new place and start a commercial firm, design, construction, whatever, and instantly, boom, make it. You know, my wife and I have this conversation all the time. We're both constantly bitching about the weather here in Michigan. And why don't we just move? Why don't we just go to Florida or go to wherever? And yes, the idea is romantic and it makes a lot of sense for about 15 seconds. But the reality is, I know I could go down to Florida and start a construction company. No problem. I've done it here. I've done it numerous times. However, that shit doesn't happen overnight. And, you know, without pre-planning all of this, so that, you know, I was marketing and planting my seeds, now my forest, or planting my forest in another state, you know, it'll never work. It'll never work the way you want it to.
When it comes to like maintenance and following up with clients, so this is my third month doing it. My newsletter that I've sent out has gotten more and better reactions and shares from people that probably never post anything in their like entire lives, but they feel compelled to share a simple 4-page letter. And I follow the tenets of direct response, and that there will always be an offer in there, right? Like, no one has to take me up on it, but it's there if they would like to. And that has gotten, and no one's ever like upset that I put an offer in there, but it's gotten more and better response because I wrote a letter. I did a few little hand, you know, like I signed them, and it's gotten more and better response than anything else I've ever done. And for all of you, like, to write a 4-page, again, front and back, right? 4-page deal, 2 pages front and back, like, it's not all that hard, right? It's 2,000 words is, I think, what it comes down to. It's not overly complicated. It's some stuff, some personal stuff, some business stuff, some shit I felt like talking about, and that's it. Like, it's not overly hard. It's not overly complicated. And the simple follow-up and the dollar that I spend in envelope, paper, stamp, which is stamp's the most expensive thing in there, to send out is like well worth it. But nobody spends the $1 a month a client to follow up and keep them engaged in whatever it is that you're doing.
I can't even disagree with that a bit. I don't do it. Nobody does it. You know, we talk to what we follow up with past clients, you know, and on a cursory level, we try and keep in touch, but nothing routine and regular to make sure that we're in their mind frame all the time. I can tell you that I read your newsletter every time I get it. And I can see the power in doing that. It's just it's a discipline thing, right? You got to be willing to put in the work, and you got to be able to build that habit out of it and keep doing it. And that's when it starts paying in dividends.
And to be honest, like, so it took me 2 hours to design the first one, to get all the logos and layout and whatever, maybe more, 2-3 hours to like lay it out. And then it takes me 2-3 hours to write it. And then it takes half hour to print them and sign them and write a note and stamp and put them in the, mailbox. Right. So it's 4 hours a month, maybe, to do that, like half a day, to keep in touch with people that, want to hear from you. And I mean, my numbers aren't huge, but it's like 30% growth month over month.
I'd say that's pretty huge. I mean, that's a tremendous number, actually. I mean, what do you get for a normal email campaign? You know all about this stuff.
I mean, so one, I get 100% open rate on the letters. I'm pretty much like guaranteed. So like an average, like a really great email campaign in this day and age is like 15% open rates. 20 is like, for a warm audience, 20% is like, you're good. 15 is more likely. And then like for cold, it's, 5-10%. And then click-through rates are 5% total, or really like you start like, and 5% is amazing. 3% is like good, for a direct response campaign. So like you send something in the mail, and this is like think back when you were a kid, for getting like Sony Music subscriptions for, whatever, BMG Music, for that campaign to be successful, 2% response rate was all they needed for that to be a successful campaign. 1.5, they were probably doing good. Like they were breaking even on the front end of the campaign and then they had hopefully a back end that made money. So they didn't ever have to be like actually profitable on the front end of that stuff. So that's in 1%, you were probably losing money, but if you had a back end, then it was fine. So like that's how those numbers break down. I mean, like openability, right? Deliverability is one of the biggest things. And I can almost guarantee that so long as my letter gets delivered, which is the biggest thing, right? The mailman didn't lose it somewhere.
Right.
But so long as it gets delivered, it will get opened.
And that's huge. I mean, there you have it, guys. He just gave you the secret sauce. He also told you how I single-handedly built my entire music collection back in the 90s, and why somehow BMG and Columbia House never went out of business by giving me all those free CDs. But that's a topic for another day.
Because they had a back end. I mean, you bought month after month, cost them nothing.
Some people did.
Well, or on a regular basis, right? Even if you bought every 3 months. But this was the thing, like they kept sending you shit. They kept making you an offer. And then like, if you bought every other time, again, like it costs nothing, especially in the 90s, it costs nothing to mail a CD. So like it did, they could do that. And then it costs like their mailing campaign, especially in the 90s, it was 50 cents probably per thing to send out. Like it costs them, and then you paid $8 in shipping and handling. So the product and the mailing was covered by shipping and handling, and then everything else was profit on the top of that. Like, I mean, that's how they made their money. And then they had a back end that, you kept getting music and you paid $4 a CD and you thought you were getting such a good deal. And I mean, that's how I have, 100 CDs, because they were what I perceived as cheap, and everybody made money, everybody won, right? Like it was a winning thing.
Absolutely, man. But they stayed top of mind. They stayed right in your face.
It's power direct mail. Well, but this is what I mean by a selling situation of one, right? Getting your customer alone. Like you're not like all the hundreds of thousands of subscribers to Playboy are that because it comes to their house. No one else has to know about it. It's a secret, like for their 500,000 subscribers and they gain like 40,000 a month. Like it's insane. But I mean, they have churn, but again, they're 500,000 subscribers, like average a month. Like, again, nobody knows if you do or don't subscribe to Playboy because it comes to your house. And this is, but it's like the beauty of it, man. Like nobody knows what books you get or what's in your Amazon box or anything like that because it comes to your house. So the more you can do this is super beneficial. But guys, like through all this stuff, just important to like find ways to be unique, special, better than everybody else so that you can keep and maintain that customer above everything else. Any last words, Matt?
I love it, man. I think it was a good show. It feels like it's been, I don't know, months since we sat across the mics from each other and actually recorded, but it's good to be back and ready to rock and roll, man.
All right, guys, that is this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. And until next time. Okay, I want to do just like the intro here for the show that you can cut and move. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host and joined as always by my blue collar badass, and maybe really not always, but we're back here today. And this episode, basically Matt and I just sat and bullshitted for an hour and a half, and we're going to chop up through this. And so there's going to be probably some jumps and skips between thoughts and topics and whatnot in this episode, but we hope that you enjoy it. It's getting close to Christmas, guys. Don't let off the gas. Don't stop, and enjoy this episode of the Construction Corner podcast.
Awesome.
Cool, man. Anything I can like personally help with?